Day 7, I went with Stuart Gordon, From Beyond. This movie... I mean, I expected it to go off the rails. It's set in the same Lovecraft universe as Reanimator, and it's from the same guy. It even stars the same guy who played Herbert West. Honestly, I think I liked this a lot more than Reanimator. Reanimator has its moments, it's fun, but this was insane. This... I don't even know where to begin with this one. Literally, the opening shot is the guy turning on this machine, and then these weird fish creatures are floating in the air, and one of them bites him, and he realizes, holy crap, these things are everywhere. We just can't see them unless this machine's on. So his partner's like, hey, I'm going to turn that thing on. And then he gets eaten. This is all before the opening credits. You know it's going to be good by that point. And there's really very little downtime before it gets right back into it. And it just gets weirder and weirder as it goes. At one point, his pineal gland, bursts out through his forehead with a mind of its own. And it entices him to eat brains through the eye socket. Not quite sure how that works with human anatomy, but okay. If you're into body horror, if you liked Reanimator, there's no reason not to watch this one. I just got back from a screening of Hereditary at the Art House. This is still a relatively new movie, so I don't want to go too heavy on the spoilers. That said, skip to this timestamp if you don't want to hear any spoilers of any kind, because I can't trust myself not to give away something. So, I honestly knew very little to nothing about this movie prior to going in. I'd seen the trailers for it back when it first premiered, and all I knew was that it was about some little girl. Seemed creepy. I figured she was going to have something to do with it. She was going to get possessed, or she was going to be a manifestation of evil of some kind, or I don't know. That's what the trailers made it out to be. She was prevalent in these trailers. And I guess, spoilers, it happens in the first 20 minutes. She dies. And while the rest of the movie is about her, in a way, she's not in it. She doesn't have much to do with it. It's just interesting how they chose to advertise it. That said, I don't know how you advertise this movie because I don't really know how to even describe this movie. I had a weird thought, actually. And it wasn't until the very end, the very final reveal at the end of the movie, that it occurred to me that this movie is a lot like Rosemary's Baby in a weird way. Only they don't need to impregnate someone with this seed of Satan. They can just put his spirit into somebody. Something like that. Without giving away too much, it's difficult to explain my reasoning. So I might need to talk about it again later. But it was... okay. I can't organize my thoughts. The movie is so strange. It was almost like two different movies. The first movie was a straightforward drama with heightened tension, very dark drama. And honestly, if I don't know how you would really write it, but if you could write out the horror elements and alter it, it would make for a fantastic drama. That said, the second half of the movie is when the first horror elements begin to show themselves. And yeah, I mean, it took a solid hour before the movie began to get particularly creepy or unsettling. This is something I really need to do a discussion about. I got a feeling the next roundtable, if I can get Andrew over, we need to talk about this movie at length. What is this now? Day 9? Yeah, day 9. I just watched Hellraiser 6, I think. They stopped numbering them after 4. Hellseeker. Wasn't bad. It's amazing how far removed it is from the original. Yeah, it still has Pinhead and Cenobites, but man, they played such a smaller role in this one. It's largely a police drama about a guy suffering amnesia and hallucinations, trying to find out what happened. And police suspect it was him that committed this murder, or it wasn't a murder, and it was an accident, but there was no body, yet there wasn't a whole lot of sense being made. And that's on purpose, because the main character is suffering from amnesia and hallucinations, so he doesn't know what's real and what isn't. So you as the viewer also have no idea what's real and what isn't. It did a good job of creating that sense of unease, of unsuredness, of confusion. You felt just like he did through most of the movie. And because it's a, far down the ballot horror movie sequel, I don't really care about spoilers, so the twist at the end, a good Shyamalan kind of twist, he was dead the whole time. And then it sort of made sense. I guess it does, because it really wouldn't have mattered what happened throughout the movie, because once you throw out he was dead the whole time, all of this has been a ghost dream. It basically gives the filmmakers a blank check to do whatever they want, cobble together whatever script they like. Doesn't matter if it makes sense, because it's not supposed to make sense. Get it? It's hardly a Hellraiser movie. There's some basic elements from it, like one scene of hell, hell with all the chains. There's really not that much. It felt like a totally different movie that they just threw Hellraiser into. I'd have to do some research to find out if that's actually the case. I suspect it is. But honestly, I don't care enough about it to bother to do that. Today, I finally watched Trick or Treat. I don't know why I put it off for so long. The hype is real. This movie is amazing. I love a good anthology film. I love Creepshow. I love Trilogy of Terror. All those movies. This was beautiful in the way that it was presented. It was 4 different stories, and they all kind of intermingled, and they crossed paths in unique ways, and there were obvious callbacks to one, characters from one story would show up in another one. There were more subtle things, you'd see like something happen in the background in one scene really quick, and then later on you'd see it in more detail. characters would cross paths and not even realize that they were connected. It worked so well, and it was so perfectly crafted to just flow. It was an excellent, excellent movie. Absolutely worth watching. I dare say I have found my new Halloween tradition. This is one that I'm going to revisit many times later. I've been making a point this month to try and watch movies that I've never seen before. Now, I'm gonna watch some standbys later on towards the actual holiday. But for the most part, I'm trying to watch things that I've never seen. So, of course, naturally, you're going to end up with some crap. Today I watched Cell. I have a somewhat contentious relationship with Stephen King adaptations, as most people do, I think. I love them and I hate them. Honestly, this one doesn't fall on either category. It's just blah. For the most part, it was standard zombie apocalypse fare, but with a slight twist. Instead of a virus or gamma rays or whatever, the zombies are created by cell phones. Some virus is beamed into people by listening to it on a cell phone. And the beginning was interesting. The beginning was genuinely interesting. John Cusack, his phone dies just before this, so he goes to a payphone to try and call his wife, and that's when it strikes. And he's in an airport, and just everyone in the airport, because everyone's on their cell phone, just goes nuts, and it's just a killing frenzy. And it was well shot. It was an interesting, enticing little beginning. Then it just kind of does its thing for a while until the inevitable disappointing ending that you get from most Stephen King adaptations. I mean, think about it. Think about Rose Red. Think about It. Think about The Langoliers or whatever. They all have these interesting little beginning concepts that suck you in and then just disappoint you by the end. It's his thing. And this one was no exception. It's a confusing little ending where you're not quite sure what happened, and honestly, I don't think even the writers understood what happened. There was no explanation for some of the things that occurred. The president of the internet, or whatever they called that character, he just sort of appears, and you're given a little intrigue into who he might be or where he came from, but never really explained. And it's never really explained if he was defeated or not, and why was he there? Was he real? How did this all happen? Where did it begin? There is no explanation for anything that happens in this movie. That could be why it has such a low rating. People don't like ambiguity. Ultimately, this was just a middle ground zombie apocalypse movie with an interesting concept at the beginning, but couldn't help falling into the standard tropes. So earlier this year I went to Gen Con, and I found a booth there that was selling Laserdiscs. So I picked one up, and decided that today's the day I'm going to watch it. Body Snatchers. 1993, Abel Ferrara. I'm just going to let the graphic take over there because I don't want to hold that up. Yes, There was another remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, one done in the 90s. It's not bad. It's genuinely entertaining, at least up until the very end. It had some really interesting creature effects. Well, not necessarily. Well, yeah, I'd count as creature effects. Some just good practical effects. There were like the pods themselves had these little tendrils that came out, and they'd envelop a person and absorb, like their essence, their information, and then it would create a person. And there were some really interesting visuals that they did where you got to see inside the pod, and it was like a fetus forming in a womb. It was really cool. And at one point, like the process isn't complete. The tendrils are ripped off the person, and so then the fake copy is like half finished and screaming, and it's really interesting stuff. Essentially, it's a straightforward remake of the original, or more of the 70s version, but with a sort of unique taste to it. It took place entirely on an army base. It was obviously in modern time. So when the pod people start forming there, they do it entirely within the army base. So they've got guns. So that's something. They got their money's worth out of the Donald Sutherland scream. I'm sure there's an official name for it, like the Wilhelm scream, that weird sound that the creatures make when they want to spot somebody. Because in the 70s version, I think just Donald Sutherland does that at the very end, and it's this really creepy, fun little like closing moment. In this movie, they do it at least 4 times. Pretty sure it was at least 4 times, where different characters are like trying to test the main characters to see if they've been taken yet or not, and when they fail the test, it's just like they do the thing. Overall, I was rather entertained by the whole thing. I thought it was well made, with the exception of this one scene. They had all these good practical effects throughout the whole thing, on set locations and all, This one really bad green screen moment at the very end. It just made me burst out laughing. Oh, and R. Lee Ermey with a mustache. That was interesting. Okay, day 13. I watched Dead Calm. This is a movie I've been wanting to watch for some time because I love Sam Neill, and it just seemed like something that would be really interesting to... Stop! Don't say another word. A movie that takes place entirely on the open water? That's my thing! Look, I mean, if you wanted to do this, I mean, you can. I'm not trying to step on your territory. Well, I would, but I've been busy. I've been doing stuff. Got that new movie coming out. You're not even in that. Shut up. Look, there's no rush on this. If you want to do this movie, you can do this movie. It doesn't have to be in October. Look, I already told everyone on Instagram that you would have let me do this. I know. You lead a busy life. I mean, I follow your Instagram. You haven't posted recently, but... Hey, I'm working on things. I just saw Titus. I can't be posting during a show. Just let me do this. I'm going to review this movie, not you. Okay, alright. I'm not going to say any more about Dead Calm. You wait for his review. Alright, I'm getting on that. But I got to get another beer first. I drank my last PBR and haven't been to the store in a while. Whenever it happens.